Hello guys, and welcome back. So here I just did a render without any lighting to just render it. Take a look, right? It looks like this. So it's really hard to tell like how it exactly looks like without any other elements. So let's actually set up everything here. Okay, so let me go ahead and turn on my water emitter here and change the rendering tag on this guy. And also I'm going to drop down a attribute wrangle here just to give this guy a color at CD will be equals to at and 1 maybe 0.6 and 0.3, so it's like a brownish color. Alright, let's go back. And I also want to render my water, so let me go to the water simulation. Oops, just turn it on actually. Alright. Now white water source, we don't need that, we don't need the simulation, we just need the input, which is this guy here. Right. So we have all the things we need. Right. Now I just need some lighting, so I'm gonna go ahead and create a light. I'm gonna use the environment light right here, and I'm gonna load a image. The image I'm gonna load is the beach image from Substance Painter that I'm basically stealing from. Okay. Alright. So let me also give the water some water material. Underneath the material palette you have the spray here already, that's for the fog. For water you can go look for the liquid basic or basic liquid. And I'm also going to drag in another guy called uniform volume to drag that guy in. So we have 3 materials. Go back to object, grab my water simulation input, and go to render, click on material and look for the basic liquid. Okay. I'm gonna give it some like basic liquid material on it. And right below it I'm gonna create a geo again. I'm gonna call this one water simulation interior. Right, and here I'm not gonna do anything but just object merge in the water geometry one more time. So here underneath the object I'm gonna just load in the water simulation inputs, the particle fluid surface, basically the same geometry, but this guy I'm gonna give it a different material here. I'm going to use that uniform volume right here. So basically we have 2 identical geometry. One is using a water basic liquid material for the surface, and another one is using a material called uniform volume just to mimic what's happening on the inside of the water. Okay. Alright, so we have everything here now. Let's take a look. Alright, if it's hard to see, we can maybe go back here, and let's also just play the animation, make sure that it does go to the frame that we're rendering, because it could be we stop this guy too. Okay, go back to the C view. If it's easier, we can also cache this guy. That would be nice. Otherwise, we have to calculate that every frame. Anyway, so I have the water splashed out like that. Let's go to the render view and take a look. I'm going to hold down Control and drag on this part so I can just isolate or render this part only. I'm just going to just focus on that part and without updating the other parts. Now, the rendering of this water surface is going to be slow, so you have to be patient. As you can see, I'm having the water geometry, I'm having the foam around those guys. Right. Okay. Now, I think the particles here are being spread out too much. Might need to go tweak the simulation of my water. And the foam also seems like maybe too much too, depending on what you're looking for, right? But for now, what I can see is probably too much of those foam. Okay, so let me stop the render, and let's see how we can fine tune that. Just like what we mentioned before, the whitewater source are the first step to define like how many particles you want to emit. Like here, if you go to the white source, right? As you can see, that's how much we're emitting now. Right. I think that is probably okay. I like that, so I'm gonna say that's cool. And go back to the emission zone underneath the whitewater simulation. I'm gonna do something with it. Let's go back to the whitewater simulation. Not sure why the other guys are there. Sometimes it's buggy. Let's go to the source here. Huh. I don't know why I'm still seeing that. Okay, now it's fine. Alright, go back to the simulation. Let's take a look at the simulation. And basically I think it's emitting too much of the foam. That's a lot of foam. So here, one of the things I can go for is whitewater emitter. I'm going to change the burst rate to maybe 50. So it's emitting only half. Okay. Also underneath whitewater objects, the whitewater solver here, underneath form, I can maybe change the left span instead of 2.4. Change that to 0.5 and 1. So basically they live shorter. Right, should disappear sooner. Okay, still getting a lot. I'm gonna go for the whitewater emitter again. I'm gonna change that back to 1, so it's not emitting that much. Just oops, that's probably too little. Maybe 10. Right. Now we're having fairly little foam because I don't really want that much. Yeah, that appears to be a little bit too much, I guess. Too much, so 4. I just need a little bit. Alright, now back to the whitewater solver. You can also try treating out the spray to have some spray particles. Now spray particles can go crazy and goes really far away. One of the things you can fix that is go to the water emitter here underneath attribute. You can tell it to not inherit the velocity maybe that much, like 0.2 only. That way they're not gonna splash out like too crazy. That'll be more stable now. And also here underneath the spray, change left span to something smaller too. Oops. Bubbles, I don't think I need bubbles because my water is like really thick. Okay, take a look. Alright, so coming back, it has to update the geometry. So coming back to here, I'm gonna go maybe zoom in here a little bit, and let's take a look at the render again. I'm gonna go to render, shift and drag the area one more time, and take a look at how my render looks like. As you can see now, we're having much lesser foam. And a little bit like splashing somewhere, I can't really tell, but it should be somewhere there. if it's easier to see, one of the things we can do to debug this is that, let me stop the simulation, is that we can actually go to the whitewater input. Oh, actually not there. Go to the material, right, and double click on the spray. What if I give it a different color, like a red color? That way I can really see like where are these stuff, where are my splash and foams. As you can see now, they're just over there, right? They're not really having that much. Okay. So again, it's your choice, I guess, to have more or less white water. Okay, and the more you have, also the render time will be slow too. And yeah. So I kind of want to just a little bit more based on what I can see there. So back here in the simulation, let me go to the emitter again, right? Let's change that burst rate from 4 to 8, so we're bursting more particles. Alright, and also back to the whitewater input, right? We can also go to the VDB here. Actually there, the volume raster res particles, and we can change the density and particle scale. Okay, so that's the particle. If we go ahead and change the density to 2, should be able to see a little bit more particle. Alright, and particle scale to maybe 0.6, 0.8, so it's not like super strong. Alright, of course I have to really look at it in the render again. Let me actually focus on this part. Alright, as you can see, we have some whitewater foam on the leading edge of the water. Okay, a few things we can change now, like for example the color of the water. It's now a little bit bluish. Reason being for that is because of the material here. The basic liquid is somehow having this base color as a blue. I intend to make it just like white water, so I'm going to change that to white. As you can see now, my water becomes more like white water. Okay. And also the volume, right? This volume we're creating are also white. It's also white. We can also change that to something like, a water, a blue color there, and that's gonna make the thicker water become just a little bit more blue, so that we have some very interesting variations here. Now you can achieve similar things in Vray using the fog inside of the Vray material and things like that. But yeah, okay. Alright, so back to the spray here. Now we're using the red color. I can basically change that to anything I want now, maybe just a white color for now. Okay, now there is the smoke density here. You can fine tune too, like if I want to have denser splashy results, or sorry, white water, I can go for like a different number, like 9 to double it. You should be able to see more fog up there. They're basically emitting or rendering fog on those white water particles. Okay, we can take a look at the full render, but it's gonna take a while to render everything. Alright, so that's basically how you render the particles, render the simulation of the water. But just to be aware that a lot of things are have to be taken care of, like the shape of the water. You can maybe go back and tweak it if you don't like the result you're getting. Also sorry, the emission of the splashy white water thing here underneath the white water simulation and white water source. You can do a lot of tweaking there too. And more importantly, if you really want to get super high quality results, go all the way back to the water simulation. You want to basically changing the particle separation to something just a little bit lower, so that you can get better detail. And of course, the meshing of the water here, the water simulation input, the meshing of the water also determines a lot of things, let's basically determine the shape of the water, right? So if let's say I probably want to be just a little bit bigger, I can change that to 1.2. As you can see, the water becomes wider, right? If that's more closer to the things you're looking for. Okay. Alright, so a lot of things, as you can see, you can tweak to get the final result you want. So you probably want to do some testing before you do a final render. Just go to one of the middle frames and take a look at the render. You can shift drag to create a selection to render. Shift double click on the outside to get rid of that. Okay, so this is gonna take some back and forth eventually, and some quality control. A water simulation could take a long time and render a long time, so it would be better to actually trying to get the best result you can get from this testing stage before you really try to render a sequence. Okay, so that's it for the fluid simulation tutorial, right? I hope that some of the techniques really works for you, and just have some fun, I guess. Render some you can render a sequence. Yeah, let me actually do that here right now. I'm gonna go for the render, which is out, and grab my Mantra IPR here. And I need a camera, so I'm gonna go back to the scene and maybe zoom out just a little bit. Control click on the camera to create a camera. And grab that. Go to the drop down menu on the upper right corner and select the camera, so you can go back and lock it. That's gonna allow you to navigate that camera. Okay, and then turn off that. Alright, so we have a camera now. Oops, and go back to the render view and then change that to the camera we're creating here. And back to the out, you can grab the render again and tell it to render frame range and the camera you're using, the resolution if you want to change something like that. You can calculate motion blur if you wanted to do that. So I'm gonna go to the object again, right? Motion blur. Gonna be underneath the water simulation inputs. Go to the render sampling and turn on the geometry velocity blur on these guys. I guess these guys are already. And also go back to the outs and allow motion blur underneath the rendering here, so that we can really render motion blur. Let's take a quick render test just to make sure that everything is okay. And make sure we have those motion blur happening. If it's easier, we can maybe just look at those droplets, because they should be having super fast speed and they should be blurry like this. Those blurry results because they are moving super fast. In fact, if they're not moving as fast and not causing motion blur, they will look weird after in the rendering, because they just basically not really making any sense of this fast moving object becoming really clear. Alright. So I'm gonna I think everything here looks fine. I guess those colors, let's see if that color is gonna go away eventually. Maybe that blue color is a little bit too strong. I'm gonna go back to the material here and go grab my uniform volume. I don't really want it to be that saturated. I'll lower that down. Alright, cool. Okay, so let's say I'm happy with my water simulation and the render setting now. I can now go ahead and do a render, right? So do a sequence render. Again, go back to the out. I'm gonna grab my render node, and here underneath the actually we don't have to change anything else. Just go for a render to disk. Of course, you want to give it a place to store underneath the image where you want it to store it at. I'm gonna change that maybe to if it's good, and render, and maybe call this guy a water sim, and I'm gonna hit on the render to disk, and this will pop up and it will start rendering. Now this is gonna take hours to render, right? So I'm gonna go sleep, and in the morning I'm gonna show you maybe the result we're getting, but for now I guess that's all we can do. Okay, so I guess I'm gonna see you in the next video. I'm gonna show you some of the render results, and then we're gonna call it the end of this water tutorial. Okay, thanks for watching.